When police on Long Island are busy trying to match known murders with one man's stunning and bizarre confession, he may be a serial killer responsible for more than a dozen murders.
A quiet, affluent neighborhood turns deadly as a horrifying discovery unfolds. Bodies are found along a desolate stretch of Long Island's South Shore, each one a chilling mystery. Who are the victims, and who is behind this terrifying series of murders?
Identified female is such. He patronized her, and then he killed her.
The police believe a serial killer is on the loose, but could there be more than one? The search for answers is just beginning. Don't miss a moment of this twisted investigation. This mystery is far from over. The discovery, it's just such an evil, dirty place. It's isolated. It's desolate. It's a rich community. You've got doctors, cops, and very, very wealthy people who live there. No one would ever think that this could be a dangerous area, but it is. On the south shore of Long Island, a major police investigation is underway. 10 bodies have been discovered along a single stretch of coastline, each one raising more questions. The chief of detectives calls, saying they've found another body, then another and another. The situation grows more horrifying with each new discovery. The possibility of multiple killers looms large. As detectives continue their search, they warn that the body count will likely rise. Serial killers don't stop until they're caught, and this one, or perhaps several, is still out there hunting. With each victim found, the mystery deepens. Were these murders linked to the same person, or are there multiple killers working in the shadows of this otherwise quiet community? The first 4 victims, all young women, were found just miles away from where a 5th woman vanished after a terrifying 911 call. The families of these victims, caught in a web of grief and disbelief, are desperately searching for answers. Who were these women? Why were they hidden side by side on a Long Island beach? And most chillingly, who is the killer? Still lurking unknown. As the investigation continues, it becomes clear that the killer, or killers, carefully selected their victims, all with a disturbing connection to the sex trade. The discovery of these bodies marked the beginning of a dark and twisted chapter in Long Island's history. The search for the truth has only just begun, but with each step, the question remains, who is behind this terrifying series of murders? Victims' background. The first victim was Shannon Gilbert, a woman who worked as an escort in the online sex trade. On the night of May 1, 2010, Shannon left Manhattan for a routine job on Long Island. She was contacted by a client on Craigslist, and though the destination was far from her usual locations, the offer was too good to turn down. 2 hours for a $4.50. Shannon's driver, Michael Pack, drove her to meet the client, Joseph Brewer, who lived in the gated community of Oak Beach. As they arrived, everything seemed normal. However, as Shannon entered Brewer's house, something went wrong. At around 5:00 a.m., Brewer emerged from the house and called Michael Pack to inform him that Shannon had to leave. Confused and worried, Pack followed Brewer inside, only to find Shannon standing in the kitchen, visibly distressed. When he tried to convince her to leave, she suddenly became frantic, claiming, "You guys are trying to kill me." Her panic was the start of a terrifying sequence of events. Shannon bolted from the house and started running down the road, screaming for help. A 911 call was made, but by the time authorities arrived, Shannon had disappeared. The search for her would span months with no answers, and no sign of the young woman who had left her life behind in search of quick money and the promise of something better. Shannon's story would set off a series of discoveries and investigations that would eventually lead to the uncovering of more victims. But for Shannon's family, it was the beginning of a nightmare that would never fade. Her mother, Mari Gilbert, would spend years searching for answers, convinced that the small, quiet community of Oak Beach held the key to her daughter's fate. The investigation, as the search for Shannon Gilbert continued, the police investigation took a darker turn. Despite initial efforts, it wasn't until months later, in December 2010, that the first significant break came. A Suffolk County policeman, conducting a routine training exercise, found human remains in a remote area of Ocean Parkway, near Oak Beach. The discovery sent shockwaves through the community, as it quickly became clear that these were no accidental deaths. The police began to uncover a disturbing pattern: 4 bodies, all sex workers, dumped in the same area. These victims were wrapped in burlap sacks, and all had been asphyxiated. As investigators dug deeper, they realized that these women were linked to the same dangerous online world, Having advertised their services on Craigslist, the unsettling truth began to surface: a serial killer might be operating in the area. Forensic teams worked tirelessly, and police were now faced with the enormous task of identifying the bodies. While the investigation progressed, the families of the victims struggled with the agony of not knowing who had killed their loved ones. The pressure mounted as each new discovery revealed more victims, but still the killer remained elusive. With each finding, the investigation grew more complex and the search for the truth intensified. The killer's profile: the police were confronted with a chilling reality: the killer was no ordinary criminal. Based on the patterns of the killings, experts began to piece together a profile. The killer was familiar with the area, likely living nearby, and knew exactly where to dispose of the bodies in a way that made them almost impossible to find. This suggested a local man, someone who had spent considerable time in the area, and possibly someone who worked in a profession that involved physical labor, such as a landscaper or contractor. What stood out to investigators was the meticulous nature of the killings. The victims had all been asphyxiated, and their bodies had been disposed of in a similar manner, wrapped in burlap sacks and dumped along the isolated Ocean Parkway. This level of organization suggested that the killer had a methodical approach, perhaps with experience in covering his tracks. The killer's choice of victims also seemed to follow a disturbing pattern. They were all women involved in the sex trade, many of whom had posted ads online for escort services. He preyed on vulnerable women, offering them quick money, but ultimately leading them into a deadly trap. Police believed this was not a random selection. The killer's actions were calculated, and each victim was carefully chosen. With each new revelation, the police were left grappling with the terrifying possibility that they were hunting a serial killer who had been operating in the shadows for years. Ongoing search: as 2011 progressed, the search for the Long Island serial killer continued, but with little progress. The families of the victims, now united by their shared grief, refused to give up on finding justice for their loved ones. They worked tirelessly, sharing information and investigating leads on their own. Their persistence became a driving force in the ongoing investigation, but the police were still without concrete answers. With each passing day, the community grew more unsettled. The killer, who had managed to evade capture for so long, remained at large, and the fear of more victims haunted everyone. The case had become one of the largest and most complex investigations in Suffolk County's history, but the killer's identity remained a mystery. Police had no physical evidence linking anyone to the crimes, and despite over 200 tips, none had led to a breakthrough. In the midst of this, Shannon Gilbert's mother, Mari, continued her own investigation, even going through her daughter's records in search of a clue. She believed that the answers lay within the community where Shannon had vanished, and she wasn't ready to give up on finding the truth. The search was far from over, and with every discovery, the hope for justice remained alive, though the killer's identity and his next move remained uncertain. As the search for the Long Island killer continues, the families of the victims are left grappling with heartbreaking questions. Who is responsible for this gruesome string of murders? If you want to stay updated on this chilling case, make sure to hit that subscribe button now. What do you think? Could the killer still be out there, waiting to strike again? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't miss our next video, Maura Murray's disappearance. Still no answers after 20 years, coming soon!